talk some basketball. Kenny Atkinson, second-year coaching jump. What you got for me?
Yeah, Jason and I did a Cavs show this morning, and we had a whole rundown planned. And then during the first portion of our discussion, Jason said something that sparked this idea in my mind, and we discussed it a little bit. We're going to elaborate on it now. But Jason, for anyone who didn't see the Ultimate Cavs show this morning, you should go check it out first and foremost. We always talk about the year 1 to year 2 jump for players. After your rookie season, you learn the ins and outs of the league. You learn what worked, what didn't work, where you have to work on, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, all the above. And we often see players, not just in basketball, but in football and baseball, make the biggest jump from any year to year in their career from year 1 to year 2. So the question I had was, can a coach make a similar jump from year 1 to year 2? Is there such thing as a coaching jump similar to a player jump? And if so, would it apply to Kenny Atkinson in this situation, even though he does technically have prior head coaching experience in Brooklyn?
Yeah, we were talking about this morning. I'll just sort of simplify what I said. I don't think there is a big leap for him to take because he does have a ton of experience. He was head coach of Brooklyn. I think he learned a lot of just having gone through that in Brooklyn about how to manage stars. And so then he carries that over to Golden State, where he learned quite a bit under Steve Kerr, I think, on culture and how to relate to players and building the type of mood and vibe that you want within a team. The big thing that I think he learned from last year going into this year was just postseason, series to series, and how to manage lineups and rotations and within a series. And last year was the first time that he had a chance to coach a team that could win a championship. And that comes with a different set of expectations and pressures than a team that's just trying to compete. He had a massive rebuild in Brooklyn. There's not a lot of pressure on you in Brooklyn to win. Where he walked in, that franchise had been gutted, and they were really starting to rebuild the whole thing. So he went through that, and he learned that. And I think he learned probably about himself as a coach from going through that. But then when you take a leap and you take over a team that's trying to press the button, okay, it's time to go and it's time to win right now, when you're going against Eric Spoelstra in a playoff series, when you're going against Rick Carlisle, two guys who have won championships, who have been there, and now it's on you to how do you adjust your rotation, how do you bench guys, how do you move away from certain things that aren't working where you have more time in the regular season than you do in a postseason. I think that's probably the nuance that he learned last year coming into this year. And also the other point was he just didn't have a lot of time here last year because he was coaching Team France and trying to get ready for the Olympics. And he was flying literally across the world multiple times. He was only in Vegas for a couple of days. So he didn't have a chance to really get to know guys and really dig in with guys. Whereas this offseason, he's been able to go to various places across the country and spend time with Evan Mobley and spend time with different guys. And I think that there's more layers to the playbook now that he can get into because he's not trying to compete in the Olympics. And I think he's just going to be more refreshed because what a grind that was for him if you go all the way back last summer and then going through last season and then the playoffs and everything else. I'm sure he needed time to just recharge emotionally, mentally, all that because it was such a demanding position that he was put into. So for all of those reasons, I think he'll be better. I think you'll get a better version of Kenny this year than you had last year, and you had a pretty good version last year. But I don't know that there's any big year-to-year leap that he will take because he's not a young coach. He had quite a bit of experience by the time he got here.
I'll say this. For Kenny this year, it's going to be different because last year, I feel like the pressure was more on like Kobe last year because you're bringing everyone back to, you're running the thing back, right, with the big three, core four, and now they got so far, they fell short. And like the guy said yesterday, Bull says this all the time, talk to me in April.
Yeah.
And so now Kenny's got to get to this, go coach through an entire season where really he's not even going to be judged until May.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing he does in regular season matters.
Yep.
They're going to make the playoffs. We know that. But how they perform in the postseason is what his legacy is going to be. And will he be the coach of the Cavs long term? Well, we'll find out in May and June.
It is crazy that there's going to be an 82-game slate
that no one's going to care about.
Year 2 of Kenny Atkinson that is basically it's not irrelevant to fans, but it's irrelevant to how we'll judge this team. Whether they win 65 games
and listen,
in the regular
I'm a season ticket holder. I'll still be there
Yeah.
at games, and I'll be loving it and having a ball. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, when I talk to my buddies who I'm traveling around doing college or whatever, and they know I'm a Cavs fan, it's like, okay, well, are the Cavs good? Yeah, they're good. They've been good for the last several years, but are they good enough? Are they playoff tested? No.
That's the question.
We don't know.
Yeah.
They're good. Are they good enough? When it comes to a year-to-year jump for a coach, I do think if you're a first-time head coach, if you're 38, 39 years old, like when Will Hardy, the Jazz coach, got hired, he had been an assistant for a few years, but it's his first time ever being in charge of a team, regardless of the overall structure and how long, what you're doing in that role. Kenny's been a head coach in Brooklyn for 4 years before he came to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's a different circumstance, you kind of know how it works at that point. It was his 5th year as a head coach. It's not like anything caught him by surprise. What I do think there is a level of a jump to be made is in how and when he utilizes certain switches. When it's your first year with the team, you're not exactly sure when it's like, okay, Dustin, when do I pull this card in the locker room? When do I have to use all right, you guys effed up gigantically, I got to go off in the post-game speech to make sure they get the reaction I want.
You're coaching millionaires that you don't know personally.
Exactly.
So you need to develop rapport, and I mean, that's still what your thunder here. But you do. It takes time to understand how far you can take a player, or how you push this guy's buttons versus that guy's buttons.
Yeah.
How do I be hard on Spida, and maybe not as hard. Like you got to learn to. You
got to learn the guys.
You can't coach every guy the same.
No. And you have to learn the guys.
Especially on the NBA. Yeah,
and
you do.
To Jason's point last year, between the coaching in the Olympics, getting this job, flying back and forth, there wasn't a lot of time for that preseason bonding, which, you talk to the players in the Cavs locker room, they all like Kenny. Sure. And at least that's what the impression I get is maybe they hate him behind closed doors. I don't know that level, but I get the impression they all seem to like Kenny. So I think knowing how to coach those guys is a jump you can take. And then I mentioned this on the Cavs show we did this morning, Jason. The Cavs didn't have a counter to a lot of things last year, especially in the playoff series. And I know injuries play a part in that when they lost Mobley and they didn't have DG at full health and DeAndre wasn't the same player after the thumb injury. When Indiana countered what the Cavs wanted to do from an offensive standpoint, Cleveland didn't have a counter to the counter. They played their way. When it was taken away, they struggled to score at times. Now that Kenny has guys in the system for another season, and the players are even more comfortable in what Kenny wants to do from a baseline standpoint on both ends of the court, you can start adding in little wrinkles to build upon your counters to what teams are going to want to take away. And frankly, I think one season by a postseason is enough that the guys should know more, and I was disappointed that in last year's playoffs against Indiana, they didn't have a counter to Indiana's defensive adjustments. So in year 2, you better have the answers to the answer, or you better have the counter to the answer, to the adjustment, because these guys are at a level and you're competing for a championship to where you're not going to win just being able to do what you want to do.
I do think this is the first year where there's going to be a considerable amount of pressure on this organization because they make the coaching change last year. They get off to an unbelievable start, and they are the darlings of the league. At no point did they really feel that pressure.
Pressure, all those things.
Until it was the Pacers series, until you get injuries, guys go down.
Until they lose game 2.
And now the building's on fire. It went from everything is great to
the dog meme.
Oh, crap. And it happened like that. So this is really the first time where they have to sort of manage that. Like the pressure's on them now. And how do you as a coach navigate that? Because the way that this team is structured, they have 2 years with this group, and then they're going to have to make some really hard decisions. Doesn't mean they can't win beyond that, but with this group, with the way that this team's constructed, they have at most 2 years. So if it doesn't happen this year, now you've going in with 1 year left. So just having to navigate, first of all, keep them motivated, keep their attention, keep them focused, because Dustin, you said it, nobody cares about the regular season.
Right.
Well, these guys still have to build good habits through the regular season. They still have to put themselves in position for April, May, and June. You use the regular season to build for April, May, and June. And then when you get there, to be able to manage the pressure and handle the pressure of the situation. So it'll be fascinating to me from that standpoint of like how do they manage the expectations, how do they handle the pressure, because they went from a team that no one expected this to happen as quickly as they did. They arrived last year faster than anyone thought that they would. So they explode onto the scene as this top team in the league and championship contender, and then it unraveled on them so quickly they didn't have to really deal with that pressure throughout an entire season and into a postseason.
Jason, if this team does not make the NBA Finals this year, it's a disappointment. I'm not saying they got to win the whole thing, but with no Tatum and
no Halliburton.
No Halliburton with Pacers. Those teams are not going to be the same. They'll still probably be playoff teams, but they're not going to be contenders. I think it's going to be tough to beat OKC. I'll say that. But the Cavs better be right there going to the finals.
There could not be a better runway for Cleveland than in the Eastern Conference right now than the situation Cleveland's in. They bring everybody back, essentially.
Red Sea, baby. Red Sea to the finals.
That won 64 games last year. Your number one team that you would say this probably is our biggest competition, the Celtics, is now without their best player for, if not the entire season, the majority of the season.
He won't be the same if he comes back at any point.
Indiana, the team that just made the finals, is without the engine of their entire team, and they're actually going to
the guy that single-handedly beat us.
And they lost Miles Turner too in free agency. The Bucks are a mess. The Sixers have all the health issues. There's some upstart teams. The Knicks are still good. Magic should be better with Desmond Bane. The Hawks have a chance to be pretty frisky, but the Cavs are the clear-cut best team in the Eastern Conference right now and should be the prohibitive favorite to come out of the East. But all the questions of, hey, this team hasn't performed in the playoffs. Is this team capable of being mentally and physically tough enough to win a playoff series against a New York or an Orlando or a team like that? Until we get an actual answer to that question, Jason, they're all incredibly fair. But the runway and the path to what they want to get to could not be better situated than it currently is.
Yeah, I think the Cavs are the best team in the East. I think they're better than the Knicks. But do you think the Knicks are scared of the Cavs?
Not even slightly.
No chance. You think Orlando's scared of the Cavs?
Nope. Not even a little bit.
No. So that'll be interesting to watch because I do think Orlando could be one of those teams that really emerges this year. They got to stay healthy. They had a ton of injuries last year. If they stay healthy, the Cavs should beat all of them. I think on paper they're the most talented team in the East. But those two teams in particular have pushed the Cavs around in the past. They've had success with them in physicality in playoff series. I don't think either one of those teams would be scared to see the Cavs in a playoff series. Or they wouldn't look at that and go, oh, man, we don't want any part of that team.
No, when you look at the OKC run to the finals last year, in the first round series against Memphis, you could tell Memphis was terrified of OKC. They wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Second round, Denver's not scared of anybody.
Right.
And they ended up forcing a Game 7 against Oklahoma City, and that was a back-and-forth series, and they were an Alex Caruso defensive showing against Nikola Jokic away from losing in the second round for the second consecutive year. And had that happened, Jason, they'd be facing the exact same questions that Cleveland's going through right now, because that would have been 2 straight years as the 1 seed that they got bounced by the 4 seed and a team that probably would have made the finals. But that's not reality. They ended up beating OKC. They ended up beating Denver in Game 7. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then they end up going 7 against the Pacers in the finals, and they are now a team that looks like on paper could win 3 or 4 titles in the next half decade.
They are built for a long, long run of success, but weird things happen, man. Injuries, it only takes a couple injuries, and things can unravel quicker than it seems, but OKC's done an incredible job of building that thing.
When you look at the rest of the Cavs, going back to the jump question, we know Mobley. We've talked about Mobley enough making another jump, even though it's not year 1 to year 2. What Cavs players do you see making a pretty big jump this year, Jason, in terms of what kind of player they were last year versus what kind of player they'll be this upcoming season?
I mean, Jalen Tyson is the easy answer, I think, that comes to mind, only because we didn't get to see a ton of him last year, but what we saw, I think, was really encouraging. And he's the type of guy, I think, when you put him with all the talent around him like this, he's going to have an impact on this team. He's going to have a much larger role just based on losing Ty Jerome. There's a spot open in the rotation now, and I think he's probably the favorite right now to grab it. So I think a lot of these guys are established. We've had the Evan conversation. Donovan is who he is. Darius has returned. We saw him return to the type of player that he's capable of being. I think Jarrett, you know what you have in Jarrett by now. So there's not a lot of contenders for that. I mean, Sam Merrill could take another leap. Certainly the organization believes in him. Look at the contract they just gave him. But because Jalen is still quite a bit of an unknown, I think he could really emerge as a player that this team relies on.
Did you like Tyson last year, Dustin? I know it was limited time, but
Yeah, I mean, in the limited role he had, I thought he showed some signs of,
Yeah.
of something. I mean, Ty Jerome came out of nowhere last year. You know, maybe this kid can do it. This upcoming season for the Cavs, what similar to what Ty Jerome was last year.
I think Sam Merrill's the guy that has to do it. If they paid him to make that jump and give them more than just spot-up shooting, I think he was kind of misused. Jay, I don't know if we ever talked about this, Jason, but he played a lot of 3 last year. Like a lot at the – I know they mix and match, but he defended threes. He's not a 3 by any means. He's a 2. Like he is a 2. And with the departure of Ty Jerome, the addition of Lonzo Ball, I think it's going to give them some more lineup versatility to put Sam back in his natural position. Even though he made steps as a defensive, or made steps towards being a better defender last season, he's still a 6'5", semi-athletically challenged. Is that a fair way to put it? Undersized 3 guarding some much bigger wings. And he didn't shoot the ball that well last year, Jason. For many guys on Cleveland that shot the absolute piss out the basketball last year. I mean, they had essentially the best team three-point percentage the NBA's seen in 4 or 5 years. Like Sam Merrill was below league average. It was 35, 36%. And they had 4 or 5 guys 40+. If he starts making a couple more of those threes, then I think he'll have some more opportunities to run off ball and utilize his shooting ability off the catch next year. He could be a guy that wouldn't surprise me, averages 11, 12 points a game.
He went on some absolute heaters at times. You know what he's capable of doing. The combination of Evan and Jarrett gives them the flexibility, I think, to play really small, but I still don't think that's advisable. We mentioned it briefly last night. We got plenty of time to get into it. I think with Darius being out, they should start Max at the 2 and bring DeAndre back at the 3 and really sort of bulk up the lineup.
That's a jumbo lineup, by the way.
Yeah.
You talk about the Cavs, and we've talked about the small backcourt in the past. You want to go from small backcourt to jumbo-sized lineup. How about 6'2" Donovan, who is not a little guard? I mean, he's short, but he's got long arms and physical. Strus is legit 6'5", Hunter 6'8", 6'9", Mobley 6'11", Jared Allen. With the fro 7 foot, without the fro 6'9", 6'10". Like that's a big ass starting lineup if they want to go that direction.
Yeah, they're gonna. I mean, we got plenty of time. We can talk about that as it gets closer to camp. But they're gonna have some options. I think they'll have an opportunity. Obviously, you want your best players available. You're better with Darius on the floor than without him. But his absence will give them, I think, opportunities to sort of experiment a little bit, see what works, see what doesn't. I don't think Max is a 3. I think he's much better served as a 2 in the league. And I think Hunter should be a starter. I thought when they made the trade for him, he should be in the starting lineup.
Yeah, why didn't they push him more to that role?
I think he was coming off the bench in Atlanta. It's a role he was comfortable in.
Playoffs were so close around the corner.
Playoffs were close. The advanced numbers were great with Max in the starting lineup. All their metrics were really, really good. And they felt like, why disrupt what's already working well? But now with an entire offseason to sort of reset, I think Hunter should be a starter, especially with Darius being out. Mike mentioned, on the Cavs pod that it leaves them a little thin on the bench, and I guess it does. But I still would rather go. Starters are starters for a reason, and I know that they tried to limit minutes last year. But I think you put your best starting 5 out there. I think Hunter deserves to be in the starting lineup.
At least last year, I think part of the reason he came off the bench was it is tough to just insert a guy midseason to a team that had as much success as Cleveland and say, all right, you're now going to just play in the starting lineup. But when Strus, and by the way, I agree with Jason. Last year I didn't think it made sense to start Hunter. This year I think it makes perfect sense to start Hunter. Strus needs the ball less. He's more of a motion guy that can use the screening of both bigs. He plays better off screens. Hunter's more of an isolation guy, stand in the corner. So they're different stylistically. And last year, off the bench, he was playing with Ty Jerome, who was his best friend. Mm-hmm. And they had that built-in chemistry, and it's kind of tough to build chemistry mid-season. When they traded for Hunter, they had 3 practices in his first 45 days in Cleveland. So, where are you building the chemistry other than games?
Yeah,
so
games.
I just thought it made sense for him to play with guys he had previous relations with, and obviously he won a national championship with Ty Jerome in college, so they were friendly. But to Jason's point, this year, what you've done in the past has worked in the regular season. It hasn't worked in the postseason. You have to try other things, and I think DeAndre is one of their 5 best players. I don't think you necessarily have to start your 5 best players, but he gives you the versatility, the length, the size, the athleticism on the perimeter to where from the start of a game, from the opening tip-off, he can match up with I was going to say Tatum, but he's obviously not healthy this year, but a Jaylen Brown or someone like that, and try to stop them and prohibit them from getting off to a hot start and taking over a game.
I think Strus in a bench role when this team is healthy is perfect. I think it's almost a luxury to have at that point. If Darius is back and healthy, and you start Darius and Donovan in the backcourt, DeAndre at the 3, and bring Max off the bench to run that second unit, I think that's ideal for this team.
Yeah, and you could run stuff for Strus too.
Yeah.
And
He could be featured.
Yeah.
With Lonzo as the point guard, who's a traditional pass-first guy, like you.
Totally forgot we have Lonzo.
You could run a lot more like
Gotta hope
motion
he's healthy.
offense. I just hope he's healthy.
I know.
Like, he's gonna be so.
Because he'll be so much fun to
If
watch.
Lonzo is healthy,
Exciting.
he's going to be everybody's favorite player. I'm telling you.
He's an Energizer bunny, man.
He just makes everyone else around him better too.
Yeah, such a good athlete.
So you could do stuff with him running the show, and imagine if you had Lonzo at the point, Jason, Strus and Merrill, and this is a bench lineup, so it's in smaller minutes.
Yeah.
And then Larry Nance Jr. and Mobley, or Larry Nance Jr.
Jalen.
and Jarrett, one of those two. They get A, the spacing you have on the floor.
Yeah.
And then B, how much you can run and move Strus and Merrill to kind of, it's almost like a 2 backfield set, Dustin, where you have opposite motions or they split to put the defense, what the hell are you going to do? Imagine running Strus off a down screen coming this way, Jason, and you're running Sam off a floppy screen coming that way. And you got the big in the middle who's guarding Mobley, who could also shoot, looking around like, one of these three is going to be wide ass open. Like, who am I just going to let get open? This could be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.